In this video, we'll talk about some advances in the scientific and technological area in Asia, Europe and the USA. We begin in Asia in 1090, where the chromatograph is invented by the Russian scientist Mikhail Tsvetanov. A year later, the Japanese Takamine Yokichi discovered the adrenaline. But while Asia was advancing in science, the USA were advancing militarily, with the Wright brothers that built the first airplane in 1903, which they sold to the USA Army. Continuing with the improvements of the United States in 1903, Henry Ford designs the very first mass-produced motorized cars and creates his company Ford.
During the same year, and with riskier ideas, the Europeans Henri Becquerel, Marie and Pierre Curie studied the radioactivity and won the Nobel Prize of Physics in that year. In 1904, the Russians Ivan Pavlov won the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology by researching about digestive system problems. He is also known for the formulation of the law of conditioned reflex. Then, in Germany in 1908, Paul Ehrlich won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in recognition for his work on immunity. He studied about leukemia. Time later, in 1911, Ernest Rutherford discovers the atomic nucleus and establishes the first structure for an atom.
Meanwhile, in America, we're focused on psychology because in 1930, John Watson founds the behaviorism, and in 1915, the theory of general relativity was published by one of the famous physicists, Albert Einstein. He won the Nobel Prize for the Brownian movement and studied the photoelectric effect. Now we travel to Asia in 1923, where Vladimir Shirokik had an application to the iconoscope. In a different country, in 1925, the American Philo T. Farnsworth creates the first TV. Then the pioneer physics and inventor Robert Hutchings is regarded as the founder of modern rocketry because in 1926, his first liquid rocket fuel was launched.
He also published a method of researching altitudes and discovered the rate of combustion dispense of the amount of oxygen. The same year, but in Russia, Vladimir Verdadsky gave the definition of biosphere. He creates the theory of that biosphere and noosphere. He also wrote Geochemistry and Biosphere. Those books made him the father of the modern vision of the system of air and further the biosphere. 2 years later, in 1828, in Europe, John Petker published Judgments and Results in Chile. And finally, in the same year in Scotland, Alexander Fleming discovered the penicillin. Because of that, he won the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology. Conclusion. So, we can see that Asia had advancing scientifically, America had more technological advance, and Europe led more for the physics and chemistry. But regardless of the type of events, seeing that each continent had during this time, there were a great scientific and technological advance that opened the door for a new world.
Now back at 1936, Konrad Zuse, a German civil engineer, inventor and computer pioneer, designed and manufactured the SID-1, which for many is the first programmable computer in history. 1 year later, on May 28, Volkswagen was founded. Back in the UK, William Adsbury, pioneer in the molecular biology, had founded the first X-ray diffraction pattern, showing that DNA had a regular structure. We move over to the American continent, where America's seismologist and physicist Charles Francis Richter had finally designed a scale to measure earthquakes and movements of the Earth's crust, the Richter scale.
A little bit to the south in Mexico, the scientist and engineer Guillermo González Camarena invents and patents his system for color in TVs, which all modern colorized images are based on. We jump back to Europe in the year 1942, where the B-1 flying bomb was launched in Germany as the first guided missile. 2 years later, and back to America, Norman Borlaug, agronomist leader of the Green Revolution, saves thousands of people worldwide from starvation with the Mexican Wheat Improvement Program. In 1942, the first polio vaccine is administered worldwide after its invention by American virologist Thomas Salk.
This helped create a basic immunity to disease. To keep selling of the field of biology, by American scientist James Derwin Watson discovers the double helix structure of DNA, with the help of a British-born Francis Crick, molecular biologistic, biophysics, and neuroscientists. They regard as the fathers of DNA. A year later, Taishi Ohno, Japanese industrial engineer and businessman, designs the system of production of Toyota, making the entire place a leader of manufacture. 2 years later, in the USSR, what is known as Russia, the Obiskin nuclear power plants become the first nuclear power planning to provide energy to the population.
Still in Asia, the fiber optic is devised by Dr. Narendra S. Kapani, Indian-born Sikh physicist. In just a decade, copper wires would be replaced completely by these thin-stranded glass wires in telephone communications. In 1957, Sergei Korolev, the lead Soviet rocket engineer and spacecraft designer of his era, launched the Sputnik, more commonly known as the first artificial satellite to be set in orbit. We stay in the USSR but travel to 1961, when Yuri Gagarin, Soviet pilot and cosmonaut, becomes the first man to ever be in space aboard his Vostok spacecraft. In 1961, Japan inaugurates the Shinkansen, the first bullet train of its category.
A lot of things happened just in 1971. In America, video games came to life when Ralph Baer patented the Magnavox Odyssey, the first gaming console. Asia continues the digital revolution when Sony introduces the first commercial videocassette recorder or VCR. A few countries away, Ananda Chakrabarty, Indian microbiologist, develops genetically engineered bacteria, a new species of Pseudomonas. Vera Rubin, an American astronomer, proved the existence of dark matter in the same year.
We travel to Europe where Stephen Hawking, one of the brightest minds of the 20th century, discovers the rotation of black holes during 1974. In the United States, 2 years later, another of the brightest minds, Steve Jobs, creates the first personal computer with the help of Steve Wozniak. Returning to Europe, but now on the year 1981, the first microscope that allows people to see things in atomic level is built by Gerd Binning and Henrik Roeder.
The year after that, Andrei Linde, Russian physicist, introduced the chaotic inflationary multiverse theory. AT&T puts the first mobile phone in the market with the help of American engineers Richard Flenkins and Joel Engel in 1983. Then, in 1934, Fujio Masuoka invents what is he famous for, the flash memory that is the USB as we know today. 2 years later, the Soviet Union proves that space is not the final frontier, as they launched the Mir, a space station that stays in orbit for 15 years and 31 days.
The 20th century reaches its last decade as the United States launched their Hubble telescope in 1990. Just 1 year after that, Tim Berners-Lee, British computer scientist, creates the World Wide Web, the internet we use today, and makes it public. By 1995, Edward Witten, American theoretical physicist, introduces the M-theory into the field of physics. The last event of the timeline comes in 1997 when Ian Wilmut, the chairman of the Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine, gives us Dolly the sheep, the first cloned mammal ever.
In conclusion, all the scientific events of the 20th century had a great impact in the whole world because they have developed humanity as a species, giving it and the world more knowledge and scientific progress. We have known how Alexander Fleming saved millions of lives with the penicillin, how the Soviet Union triggered the space race when they brought Yuri Gagarin to space, and how the USA changed telecommunication forever with the invention of the mobile phone. Each event may seem small in comparison to the everything we know, but in truth, it's thanks to those small discoveries that the science is what it is today.